I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 6, 2023 meeting. We'll be looking at going into closed session pursuant to 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the council, which privilege is hereby acknowledged, and pursuant to 143, 318, 11A6 to discuss a personnel matter. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to welcome everybody back. We come out of closed session. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you everybody for coming out for our February 6, 2023 council meeting. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to anything on the agenda tonight? If so, please state at this time. Mr. Borman?
No, sir.
Mr. Phillips?
No, sir.
Mr. Nern?
No, sir.
Mr. Corbett?
No, sir.
Mike?
No, sir.
Moving on, amendment and approval of the draft agenda. Does any member of council have anything that needs to be amended?
No.
No.
Am I good? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the draft agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Action discussion resulting from closed section. There was no action taken, so we'll move on from there. General council discussion. Mr. Nern, you said you had something for this?
Yes, I'd like
Go ahead.
to remind everybody on February 19th, the Brunswick County Literacy Council will hold their annual fundraiser. It's a Mardi Gras celebration. It will be at the Mackay Brewery from 3 to 5:30. Tickets are $40 in advance and $45 at the door. One ticket buys workbooks for one student. So if you can't attend and would still like to make a donation, you can go to the website, bcliteracy.org. That's it.
Yeah.
And
Mr.
also
Phillips, go ahead.
at that event, it's going to be a Sea and Sand band will be there, and there'll also be a New Orleans themed food truck.
Mr. Borman, you have anything?
No, sir.
I attended the bi-monthly GSATS meeting last week or so. Two things to bring up. One is the environmental impact report for the Carolina Bays Parkway. That's the extension of SC 31 out here up to our area, is due out in late spring. If they don't make the spring cutoff time, it'll be in the fall. The main thing for that is once that happens, then it'll be important for the municipalities as well as the citizens to get their impact, their comments in. The indications are that we will need a lot of comments to make sure to try to promote making sure that the parkway is on the inland side of US 17. Second point is the Highway 904 survey that we're getting funds from GSATS as a direct assistance to us. They pay 75%, we pay 25%. Has been pushed back to fiscal year 2024 to let that basically because of the overload on the work that's being done now. So that's it.
I have just a quick report on the Brunswick County Shoreline Protection Consortium that John and I belong to. We attended a meeting on January 25th. Two things I'd like to bring out. Number one, we just, as usual, Sunset Beach updated the group on phase 2 of dredging, our dredging project, to make sure the other towns along Brunswick County, along the coast, know what we're doing and where we are. We also had a quick update on offshore wind energy, which is a big thing going down the coast. There was an announcement they began sonic testing for offshore wind farms in New Jersey and New York, offshore sonic testing. And since starting the testing, they have had 12 whales, dead whales, wash up on shore in the area. That's in New Jersey, New York area, not down by us, but 12 dead whales. So local, state, and federal officials in that area have called for a temporary pause in ocean floor preparation work to investigate why this is happening. So we want to find out right away. environmentalists said, oh, it's the sonic testing. Others said it can't be that. So they've got to find out what is causing this before they move on with the testing. I'll bring you up to date when I find out. Thank you. That's
Shaking
it.
awful bad over there tonight, Mike. You all right?
Huh?
You shaking awful bad over there. You trembling.
I am?
Yeah. You trembling like that. You scared? Somebody scare you? Calm down.
It's
I'm
you.
here.
It's
Calm
you. It's you.
All right, does any member of Cats have anything else?
No.
If not, let's move on. Presentation of the
I didn't know
dredging
this.
update. You had the floor, sir. I don't know your name, or I would call it.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brandon Grant, and I'm the Assistant Project Manager for the dredging project. I'm here to give you an update in lieu of Sam coming down. But appreciate the opportunity to share what's been going on. So just as a quick recap of where we've been, we issued notice to proceed. I know this is all old information, but just to give you a quick update. December 21st, notice to proceed. Shellfish relocation started the week after that and was complete on December 29th. NC DMF approved the completion of the shellfish relocation on the 3rd, and the contractor started dredging on the 4th of January. So to date, the contractor has dredged from stations 11 plus 50, which is right at the entrance, just past the entrance of Finger Canal B. They have proceeded all the way through Cobia Street. This is the contractor believes that this next week that they will be moving into Cobia Street out to South Jinks Creek. They believe that production will be increasing after the startup of the project. They usually take a little bit to ramp up, make sure their methodology is working well, and work out any kinks that they have. And they expect that production will be increasing this following week. To date, we have estimated that they have dredged 4,000 cubic yards. We'll be monitoring that as they submit surveys and all to confirm the dredging volumes. And after they complete the remainder of the feeder channel, they'll proceed into the Bay Area to start dredging in the Bay Area. One other item that's happened since the last update is we've been working through some items at Cobia Street, which is the offloading site. Ari Goodson started offloading operations at Cobia Street without the Gabion structure installed, which was okay for the permit. The Gabion structure was designed there to provide protection from loading on the land side from any excavators and dump trucks that would be loaded from the bearing pressure through the soil onto the vinyl, the sheet pile bulkhead. They believe that they could operate efficiently and safely without it in place. However, 2 weeks after they started, they decided to change direction and install, but with a minor modification to the design of the Gabion structure. They had a concern that the barges holding the material during the offloading process might damage the wire baskets with rock in them. So they wanted to put 4 timber piles on the waterward side of the Gabion structure to protect the Gabions from any impact. We needed to figure out a way to modify notify DCM of the change, and the fastest and most efficient way to get this approved was through a letter of refinement, which was not as significant as a minor modification for the permit. So we were able to submit that on the 19th and get approval on the 20th for this, and that the structure that with the additional piles has stayed within the original footprint of the design that we originally submitted. So we were able to get that through quickly. And this is a picture of the structure installed. They have installed it. As you can see, only 2 piles have been installed currently. They're working to put in the second 2 this week. And Moffett Nickel also on our weekly site visits will be monitoring the location of the sheet pile bulkhead to ensure that no movement occurs.
Did you say weekly site visit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is that you coming down or Sam coming down or
It
somebody else?
will be someone from our team, whether it's myself or someone from our Wilmington office, or mainly it'll be myself or Sam Marchison is the other.
And what does monitoring consist of?
So what we've done is we've put 4 pipes in the ground, and we've run a string line from pipe to pipe, and we've taken measurements from the edge, the waterward side of the top cap, and taken measurements so we can at 2-foot increments along the bulkhead, so that we can monitor if there's any waterward movement of the bulkhead itself.
Okay, so you're just monitoring that spot at Cobia.
Yes, sir.
Are you
Yes, sir.
monitoring the rest of the job? How much they're dredging out, and
Yeah.
whether they're staying within the track, and whether
Yeah.
it's starting to
Yes, sir.
slide in or not?
Yes, sir. We're working with them. Any surveys that they have taken, we have monitored. They've been going back and forth through Cobia Street to Finger Canal B a couple times throughout the past couple weeks, just to confirm that they didn't want to over dredge and go. They'd rather take it slow than go too deep quickly. So they've gone through and kind of worked out their process so that the final result of the template of the surveys will show within the template. So they're working through their methodology to make sure when they go through the rest of the project that their methodology that they did from Cobia Street to Finger Canal B will be consistent as they move forward.
Thank you.
How often do they survey?
That is right now they have surveyed twice. They're required by the documents to survey every 500 feet. But right now they have surveyed twice so far in this. They've gone about 900 feet. So they're working through that process, and they'll be resurveying as they go along. But they have not actually. The next survey they should see meeting the template because the first 2 are more conditional. They didn't quite get deep enough, but still within the permitted limits. So,
The question about the shellfish
yes, sir.
location, you said it was complete for the
Feeder
feeder
channel.
canal, but there's more to be done in the finger
Yes.
canals?
Yes, sir. Not in the feeder, in the finger canals. Yes, sir. I've got a slide up here that I'll go through that process with you. Any other questions before we move on with Cobia Street?
So the process is that the dredge material goes into the holding site first?
So I'll address that. Yes, sir. So what the process right now is, if there are trucks available to, when they offload the material at Cobia Street, the material will be taken to the disposal site off Old Georgetown Road. If there are trucks en route disposing material, they have one truck stationed at Cobia Street that will act as a transfer truck to stockpile material if the barge has come to offload. And it'll be a temporary offloading at Majestic Oak. And when there are trucks available, they'll offload the material, or they'll load the material again from Majestic Oak and take it to Old Georgetown Road. Okay.
When they're doing the offloading,
Yes, sir.
they're not taking the dredge material and putting it on the ground to store it, are they?
At Majestic Oak, there is a bermed in area at Majestic Oak. So it is on the ground, but it is contained. So they've constructed a berm that's approximately 3 feet high, 4 feet high. And there's a storage, it serves as storage on the ground.
And at the end of this process, this project, that will all be removed and go back to the original state.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And this, the stockpiling portion was also addressed in this letter of refinement as well from DCM with approval.
So the return to the original state, that includes the gravel roadway and everything, will be removed from the park area?
Yes, sir. If that's a desire, unless there's a desire for the town to have that left in place, it will be removed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, and this will address Mr. Borman your question about relocation efforts. The Bay Area, there are no relocation efforts required in the Bay Area. However, before any additional shellfish relocation occurs, DMF has required a an application to a permit, a shellfish relocation permit. This is a brand new permit from DMF, and that's Division of Marine Fisheries, that has not been in use at all for any other projects. That is new. They are in the process of developing this permit, and once the permit is developed, we can then apply for that permit, and approval for that permit, or obtaining that permit, will be required before we remove any other material, any other shellfish from any other of the canals.
So if I understand it correctly, one, DMF told us to move the shellfish.
Yes,
Then
sir.
two, they told us to get a permit.
Yes, sir.
And then three, they didn't have permits for this type of project. So we have to wait for them to develop a permit before they can issue us a permit and let us move the stuff that they told us to move at the beginning.
Yes, sir.
Is that pretty much it?
Yes, sir.
Did they tell us that we had to get a permit without them having a permit?
There was no permit requirement prior to when we first did the feeder channel. There was no permit requirement at that point. After that process, they've decided deemed that it's necessary for a permit to be needed for additional shellfish relocation.
Just for this project? Or is that being applied?
I do not know.
So far, it'll be only Sunset Beach that has this permit. for
Sounds
this
like it.
For this requirement.
Sounds like it.
And Brandon, we were told that it was because the shellfish relocation in the finger canals is so large.
Yes,
It's a
there's
large volume
there's
of
a large
shellfish
volume,
that
yes.
will need to be removed from there, is the reason they're requiring this new permit.
Good excuse.
Okay.
Where does it go when they relocate? Where do they go?
there have been tidal creeks identified right off of North Jinks Creek that we have relocated to.
Okay.
And they'll be identifying if those are still sufficient for the additional need from the feeder canals in Finger Channel, or Finger Channel and Marys and Turtle Creek. So that being said, we are waiting to do any relocation efforts, obviously, until we obtain this permit, but also keeping in mind a timeline for when this permit is developed and we can apply for it and obtain it. We don't want to do that ahead of time if the dredging is not going to occur until next season for the Finger Channel, the Finger Canals in Marys and Turtle. So we'll wait until we until the time gets closer. So we wouldn't want to go and relocate anything ahead of time and then have a chance of regrowing and have to remove again. So,
Wow.
and as a reminder, Marys and Turtle Creek dredging can start on October 1st. The Bay Area Finger Canals can start on November 16th. With that, do you have any additional questions or comments?
Any member of council got any more questions for Mr. Grant?
No, sir.
No.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. for the
Thank you very
update,
much.
sir.
Thank you all.
Appreciate the information.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on to public comments for agenda items only. Does anyone have any agenda item questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. January the 9th, 2023, first regular meeting minutes, January 24th, 2023, special meeting minutes, Fire Department, December 2022 report, Building Inspections Department 2022 report from December, Planning Department, December 2022 report, Finance Department, December 2022 report, Public Works Department, December 2022 report, and Police Department, December 2022 report. Does any member of council have any questions in regards to any of these items?
Nothing for me.
No, sir.
Go ahead, John.
I've got a couple of finance related, but I think they can wait till we go into our budget discussion. So Tara, just be prepared, please.
Mike, you have anything?
Nothing.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to Town Administrator report, Ms. Amy.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of things tonight. In advance of the Calabash River Bridge replacement project beginning in September of 23, Chief Childress and I are working with Brunswick County Emergency Services to try to get an EMS unit housed at Fire Station 1 for medical calls during the time that that bridge is out. You have any questions about that? It's in infancy. We're just now starting to talk with them. The 40th Street Living Shoreline project, the engineers are beginning the design work for that project. And for you all who don't know exactly where that project is located, once you pass North Shore Drive West and you're headed toward Bay and Inlet, the two areas along 40th Street where the marsh joins the pavement there'll be a living shoreline in both of those areas. So you'll see some flagging going up of the coastal wetland areas that are there, and flagging of the survey markers for the feasible location of that project to occur in. Cindy Stevenson has done a wonderful job. The bands for the summer concerts have been scheduled and they are listed on the website. Just click on the Summer Sunset Sound Waves tab and it'll list all of them for you. And there's links that you can go to their Facebook pages or web pages and see and hear them. This year, the concerts will be held in the town park every Wednesday from June 7th through August 30th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Nope, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The 60th anniversary celebration that we talked about last month is scheduled for Saturday, March 25th. Staff is finalizing the plans now, and we'll be releasing more information to the public in the coming weeks. The Environmental Resource Committee is planning the Earth Day Arbor Day event, and it is planned for Saturday, April 22nd. And that'll also occur in the town park. And we'll be sending out more information to the public for those, but just save the dates for the 60th on March 25th and the Earth Day Arbor Day events on April 22nd. And then later tonight, as John just mentioned, we will be starting the budget process for the 23-24 budget year. As last year, Tara has prepared a budget suggested form, and that has been posted on the website in the online forms section. This form is to solicit input from the community regarding programs, amenities, or projects that the public would like the council to consider, or anything else that you would like the council to consider when they are going through this budget process. So we just ask kindly that you please submit a suggestion form as we start to go through this budget process. That's all I got.
Any member of council got any questions for Administrator?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, sir.
For all these events that we're going to do in the park with the new gazebo and all of that, are you going to publish, if you will, a parking plan, sort of to let the community know before the events start where the parking areas are, when they can park and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, with the new process for special events inside the town park or anywhere in town limits, the application process does include a parking plan, and we will be releasing those in advance of any of the events. So you'll know exactly where you'll be able to park and not park.
Thank you.
Good. Anyone else?
No.
Moving on next, Planning Board UDO rewrite activity. Chad, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Wanted to go over this tonight a little bit, and then I have some a little bit more details for you as well. If you look on the left-hand side of this chart and goes to the next page, these are the articles that's currently laid out in our current UDO. You have articles 1, 2, all the way through 13, and then 4 appendices. The table on the right is what the new UDO layout will look like. You'll take 13 articles, condense it down to 7, with a lot of those articles being brought into sections under new articles, if that makes any kind of sense. So, for example, the biggest one that you will have will be Article 3, which addressing all zoning, which is currently being made up of current Article 6, current Article 7, some of Article 5 and 4. So you're taking all that. Not condensing might be the wrong word, but you are umbrellaing it under a new article with multiple sections underneath it. So that will be good for you to look over, kind of give you familiarize yourself with what the new layout is going to look like. Wanted to give you tonight some major kind of points that we've gone through as we've combed through what's they've been given so far. Article 2 under administration and procedures, we're creating a couple things. We're creating the difference between a minor and major site plan. We currently have that right now, but being a little bit more definitive, especially when it comes into project submittals. Anything over a certain amount of square footage, that number has not been defined yet. I think we're looking at somewhere between 7,500 square feet and 10,000 square feet of potential building. Will trigger either a staff level review and approval or a board level review and approval. And that would be the difference between a minor and a major. Same thing with subdivisions. We are toying with the number of units or houses or lots in a subdivision. I think that number is going to be 20. So 20 or more lots in a subdivision would be a board and staff level review. 19 or fewer. Don't quote me on that number quite yet because it's not been finalized, but it would trigger only a staff level review and approval. As you know, we've already added conditional zoning. That new text will go into Article 2 instead of being moved from Article 4. And then we are adding a review procedure table, kind of like a flow chart, that if you submit into this project or this type of project, such as a special use, a minor subdivision or a subdivision review or a project review, or special, a conditional zoning, these are the board hearings and process you'll have to go through. In the new Article 3, this is kind of what's taken us the longest to comb through so far. We've spent the last probably 3 or 4 meetings just coming through that. We're condensing the zoning districts instead of multiple pages down to one table. So you will not flip through and see 7 to 9 pages of what the standards are for each zoning district. The standards will still be there, but it will be condensed down into a couple pages of a table. So you'll be able to see MR3 or MR2 and see the setbacks, lot size, minimum lot width, that detail all on a table instead of 7 to 9 pages. We are also updating, and when I say updating, modernizing the supplemental regulations along with those use tables. The use table will change a little bit. It won't be, we are trying to make it a little bit more broad, but also the same specific as well. Wes is doing a great job in leading us with that on what it currently kind of looks like with multiple communities around the area of what they're doing now, and current 160D language along with uses that are being proposed, which would give staff a little bit more defiance into as uses come in and how we lay that groundwork for it to be able to use that information to put it in the best category that we have. So we are creating a new zoning district. We are creating a CR2 zoning district. And I want to highlight that for you, that no properties will be rezoned into the zoning district. This will be an option for properties to rezone into. This is a zoning district. We have currently CR1. This will be a CR2 zoning district. This will be a new zoning district strictly for conservation. And then the last but not least, this is kind of where we got it to a stopping point at last Thursday's meeting. We are bringing traffic impact analysis into the UDO and where we submit that into. So I'll have more coming to you in the next couple of months as Wes and I prepare to give you more information as well Do you have any questions that I can answer for you tonight on any of this?
Does traffic impact analysis mean they're going to look at, you put 300 houses in, what it's going to do to traffic patterns, stoplights, road widths,
Yes.
access, and
So
all that kind of
we're
stuff?
working to look at that, how it would look internally, but more importantly, how it brings into the current UDO with partnering with NCDOT. For example, that I think DOT has raised their trip count to 3,000 trips a day. So if it triggers that for NCDOT, they'll make them go through a traffic impact analysis, which is a traffic study, and then make the developer install traffic patterns and stuff as, right in, right out, slow down lanes, improve infrastructure around town because of this project's going in and how it impacts the traffic around town.
Now, in the past, we've relied on NCDOT to do this, correct?
Well, NCDOT is still doing it.
Okay.
We're just bringing it into the UDO to require it to win instead of being completely a third party ordeal. We are trying to mandate where this falls into a preliminary and final plat being approved. So we have this information moving forward.
Does this, moving it into the UDO, does this give us more power to question NCDOT? Make
No.
suggestions? No?
No.
Okay.
Chad,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
so I thought that this was more reformatting, reorganization of existing requirements, I'll say. But what you mentioned tonight now, there are new zones being created,
Yeah.
some other new requirements. So it's a little bit more than just a reorganization and reformatting.
Yes. It's a rewrite.
It's also updating.
Yes. It's an update and rewrite
Yeah.
and bringing it into compliance with 160D. Also making it a lot more user and staff friendly instead of, I guess.
So that's what I meant
restricted.
about the
Yeah.
organization and
Yep.
formatting.
Yes, sir.
I don't see how the DOT is going to do anything. They don't have any money. Good example is the approved traffic light for the north entrance to Sea Trail. And in September, we're going to start rebuilding the Calabash River Bridge, which is going to make a lot more traffic on Georgetown Road. And they approved the traffic light, but it's not going to be in before this bridge is probably done.
So the way this would work, DOT would not be paying for any of this. It would be in, for example, the sanctuary is the most recent project we had to have to do a TIA. It tripped NCDOT's analysis study, where the sanctuary and Bill Clark Homes had to hire a private firm to do a TIA for them, an impact analysis on the traffic within that subdivision and the surrounding area. That information was taken and submitted to DOT, and DOT told pretty much Bill Clark, and to summarize it up, was like, you need to do this based off of this analysis. And the financial burden falls back on the developer, not DOT.
And Councilman Nern, they have funded that project now within the scope of the bridge replacement fund. But they can't guarantee that it will be put in before, but it is in the works of being put in along with.
Buying the lights from China. I was being facetious.
Any other member of council got any questions?
Chad, just quickly now, you talked about the sanctuary. That review by NCDOT was tripped because of the 3,000 cars per day that go by there?
Yeah,
or
whatever that threshold was at the time set by DOT.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Good.
All right, Chad.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to old business. First up's our 22-23 fee schedule assessment. Chad, you got this again, so go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So after last month, we approved for conditional zoning to be brought into the Article 4, the UDO. Staff forgot to set the fee for it. So in summary, the proposed amendment is to add a conditional zoning request fee to the schedule. This fee is consistent with surrounding and neighboring communities and counties. $100 was added to the existing rezoning fee due to the nature of the conditional zoning being more demanding to staff time. So the way it will work is it will be a $600 fee up to 5 acres. And then any acreage above 5 will be $10 per acre on top of the 600.
Any member of council got any questions in regards to this? If not, what's the pleasure of council in regards to this amended?
I make a motion that we approve the amended 22-23 fee schedule.
Do I have a second? Second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Moving on now to the walkway replacement project. Ms. Anglin, you have this one?
Thank you, Mayor. As you'll remember, we went out for bids to replace the 4 walkways that we've been in this program for a couple of years now. The 4 that were replaced last year were $465,000. We were shocked to see that the bid came in this year at almost double that, at $903,600. In the meantime, we also have found a grant possibility for some of this infrastructure replacement, and would like to take a step back and allow us to apply for this grant, in addition to having 4 additional walkways engineered to go out for an RFP in June, so that we would be able to start the replacement of 8 walkways in late September 23 instead of the 1st of 24. We just think by doing more walkways, we may get the price per walkway down lower, and would just like the opportunity to apply for this grant and work with the engineer to do these additional 4.
Do you think by making it a bigger project, we'll get more bids?
We hope so too. Mm-hmm.
Was this the same vendor that had done the previous 4?
Yes, sir.
Did they explain why the price doubled?
The material cost.
All material costs?
And the difficulties with finding labor.
Another question, if I may. So do we know any details of the grant? Are we looking for a grant that covers all of it, or 50%, or?
It's a matching grant, and it depends on what tier you're in the state. I'm not sure what tier we're in. Do you know?
We're in the tier that gets the least amount of money.
So it would probably be a 25% grant. This is the same grant that we just received, the $250,000 to purchase Majestic Oak, go toward that purchase as well. They've got $3.1 million will be available to projects such as this. And we would like the opportunity to get our piece of that pie.
Good idea.
So what's the pleasure of council as far as direction for our staff? Are y'all okay with rejecting this bid?
Yeah, I'll make
Yes.
I'll make a motion to reject the current bid for walkway replacement on 9th, 33rd, 34th, and 37th Streets.
And also to direct the staff, I'll make it all in one motion.
And and also direct the staff to release an RFP in June for the replacement of 8 walkways, with the project beginning September 23 and completion date of May 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Good. Next up, discussion beach parking management phase 2. Mr. Nern, Mr. Hargrave, either one of y'all like to speak? Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening. Go ahead, Mr. Hargrave.
Let me just begin a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
For those here in the chamber and those watching on YouTube, and we thought we'd have more people in the chamber. What Charlie and I like to do is just set the stage for what we're asking here. Back in September of 22, Charlie and I were appointed by council to conduct a study to organize parking plan for the future parking on the island. December 22, Charlie and I introduced to council a proposed parking study plan that consisted of 2 phases. Council approved. Moving forward with phase 1, consisting of 5 fact-finding actions. Phase 1 mandated us to gather important background information that would be necessary for an in-depth study of beach parking. The 5 fact-finding actions, 1 was review of parking ordinances. That was easy to do, obviously. But the second part of that was to go back into parking studies and try to go back to major parking studies, take a look at those and see what was tried before, what was done, what wasn't done. And because there wasn't much of that, a lot of talk about that throughout the time, but the major study we looked at was 2010, 2011 parking study. And we'll just leave it at that. Number 2, we met with NCDOT officials regarding possible parking alternatives to Main Street. Main Street is owned by the state. Main Street is owned by NCDOT. So anything we do there, we must partner with them on. So that was a big step. We had NCDOT officials out on the island looking at parking. 3, we met with a private commercial lease owner of parking lots on the island to discuss parking issues, and explore cooperative efforts. 4, we contacted a commercial property owner on the island to explore options for additional parking lots. And 5, we met with businesses and business owners along Sunset Boulevard to identify their parking needs for their employees and their patrons. I'm pleased to say tonight, for Charlie and myself, that we have finished phase 1. And we have compiled through phase 1, we feel, some important background information needed in order to continue our study. Tonight, we're going to ask council to approve our next request to move on to phase 2 of our study. What is phase 2? Phase 2, as previously outlined, will consist of the formation of a citizens committee. We foresee a committee of approximately 10 to 12 people, with Charlie and myself as committee chairpersons. There will be leadership from council throughout this process on the committee. The charge of the committee will be presenting options to the full council with justifications, explanations, and recommendations regarding beach parking. Council will always have the final say on any and all decisions. Simple role of the committee: fully understand the information from phase 1, determine alternatives for viable parking plan, and recommend to council an implementation plan for island parking. The formation of the committee now, like I said before, 10 to 12 members. We're looking for volunteers who are, and I think this is what we really want, open-minded, willing to learn, and have the best interests of our town as their main focus. We learned lessons from studying the 2010-2011 parking study. Many members on that committee were very emotionally involved. You talk to the people involved during that time, it caused some friction on the committee. Also, in that study, not one council member was on the committee. And that was a lack of council leadership, and will certainly not repeat those happenings. Please keep in mind that no decisions have been made at this point regarding island parking. We have simply researched throughout phase 1 in order to better understand the necessary background information to proceed with the study. We understand and know that council members, as well as our citizens, have varying opinions regarding the need for this study and where this study should wind up. We're asking everyone's support in moving forward with phase 2 and letting our citizens committee, with the leadership of council members, have a role in making recommendations for a parking plan for the island. And let me stress, tonight we're not here to discuss specific parking alternatives. If phase 2 is approved tonight, we ask everyone to have patience with this committee process, trust the committee to come up with recommendations that are in the best interest of the town, At this time, we ask the council to approve that the subcommittee proceed to phase 2 of the island parking study. Thank you.
Mr. Nern, you got
That was
anything
enough,
you'd like
wasn't
to
it? Do you have
add before we
anything,
go any
Charlie,
further?
to add to that?
Really took care of most of it. I'm afraid, going back to the last Citizens Committee on Parking, it almost broke into fistfights several times, and nothing was accomplished. We want to have a mix of people from the mainland, from the island, and from the businesses, and hope we can work something out. So we'll go from there if we get approval.
If we get approval.
So was that a motion, Mike?
Was that?
No,
No.
that wasn't a motion. That's just a start. But I say if we're gonna do a committee, this is just my sense on it. Y'all take it for what it's worth. But I don't see any less than at least 50% or more of the mainland people being on this thing. We definitely need the mainland thing. I don't want it to be just island. It's nothing against the island. I know they live out there and all that stuff, but we definitely got to remember Sunset Beach consists of a lot now.
So
And we need to pull it in.
brings up the first question: is how is the citizens committee going to be selected out of the volunteers? And then in previous discussions, we had things like making sure different parts of the mainland, different parts of the island, different parts of the business community, all are representative on this thing. So the question is, have you got a plan yet for how you're going to allocate those other 10 positions
Well-
into what areas?
If you want to go, or you want me to go? Go ahead if you want.
Well, we're going to, like I said, some are going to come from the mainland, some from the island, some from the business. One thing that's really bothered me since I got on the council, and I thought I'd be able to bring the island and the mainland together, but that hadn't worked. There's still some animosity both ways. And I have property on the mainland where I live, and I have property on the island. So I can see both sides, and I've always been able to see both sides. But it's going to be a good mix of citizens, again, from the mainland and the island.
Yeah, we've talked about that strongly. Try to keep that relatively even, have business representation also. And try to work with this group to choose people that are going to think about Sunset Beach first and not the island, not the mainland. What's best for our town? So this becomes an important committee if it's made, because we get so much of our revenue from all the people that come to our island and the people that rent on our island. It's a big part of our budget, and we've got to make sure that whatever we do, whenever we hopefully will enhance that, not hurt it, but enhance that. That's a big part of what we need to keep an eye on all the time. If we make any decisions regarding this, that hurts the number of people who come for rentals, for example. You can't do that. You can't let that happen at all.
But the question was, how will you select?
So how will the committee select these people? Let's say you have so many slots on the committee. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
You have so many slots on the committee. Who selects who's on the committee, and who do you determine that you turn down to not be on the committee? I mean, what sort of process would be put in place for that that's truly objective? Because if you're saying you're going to have a committee and it's going to involve people that you work well with, does that people with dissenting views don't get on the committee?
That's
Well,
not
certainly there will be people with dissenting views.
But how do you?
Mike and I will pick the committee. If you want to be on a committee, you apply.
But if you, let's say there's personal history between you all and somebody who's applies and you just don't like the person, then what are their chances of getting on the committee?
I would like to think their chances are equal to anyone else. Now, it's a tough one. I know what you're saying. But the idea here is to have all kinds of representation. We never even talked about what happens if we don't like somebody. We talked about trying to find the best people. Maybe even get to a point with having somebody come in and talk to us before. You know, what are their views? And you can tell pretty easily when people start talking if their views are the emotions of, you know, I want parking and all that kind of stuff, or I want to do what's best for the town, I'd like to be part of this decision and so on. We'll be looking for those kinds of people. And choosing is going to be important here. Not that we don't want opposing thoughts about parking. It's not that. It's about getting people who really want to play a role. During the beginning of this process, Jamie, we had some people volunteer to help out. We discovered 3 or 4 people, 2 engineers, 3 or 4 people who really wanted to come and help out and really gave no indication where they stood on anything. They just wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to help out. They wanted to use their expertise to help us out. That really made us feel pretty good, and that's the kind of person we're looking for. Will we be perfect? Maybe not.
My concern is, how do you objectively form this committee
Well,
without any bias?
I would say one thing, and that's this for people applying to, if you're one of those people that has lived on the island for a long time and you think there should be no rentals and no one should come to the beach, you want the island for yourself, and they're not as vocal as they used to be, but I know they're still out there. Don't plan on being picked for the committee. We want someone with an open mind.
But they should still have a voice.
yeah.
That's where you're getting in.
All
That's
voices
where
need to be
this is
heard.
where we're hired and not hired. We were elected to
Yeah.
represent the citizenry,
Yeah.
not determine who's allowed to be on a committee based on their beliefs.
Yeah. I think if I might, I agree with you, what you're saying. I think there needs to be a next step in here is to lay out, one, a process for people to apply. 2, I think you need to identify, if we're going to have 10 members of this community, identify ahead of time what are the areas that need to be, what are the sectors that need to be represented, and lay those down there. And to the extent that you can come up with, I'm not sure what you can't tell people, well, you have to be open-minded in the best interest of the town. Anybody who applies is going to say, I'm open-minded and in the best interest of the town. So that's going to be difficult. But also sort of a timeline for doing the committee before you go to work.
There almost
Yep.
needs to be an application type deal where they fill in, and they can write in if they're for it or if they're against it. Because I want people that's different. I want to hear everybody's opinion and let them finally come together and let's make something for a change. Work together and do something in the right direction. If this is the direction y'all gonna go in, let's try to do it right. I mean, you know, it's been going on. We're just dragging and dragging and dragging. It's continued to go on. If we're gonna go through all this process, work to make everybody work together. I mean, you ain't got to agree with everything that everybody says. I mean, we're not gonna do that. Hell, this council don't do that. But if we work
Well,
together, then we can be a true example for our citizens. So you got to be open. I mean, whether they like it or whether they don't, everybody needs to have a say. You know, I mean, you can't put everybody on it. I hope we have 50 people apply for it. I hope we do, because I like to see our citizens participate in things. But we may not. We may not have 10. But we definitely need to have that option available. We want to encourage everybody that wants to get involved to get involved.
Okay.
Would it be reasonable to ask, come back at the next meeting with an application form, a layout of what the slots that you have, you know, the sectors of the community that need to be represented?
Yeah. I mean,
And-
you know, if you go with a 12,
and-
you look at it right now, you're thinking 5 and 5, 2 business people, or that, you know, and decide about something like that. Just have some kind of format where we can work forward. Where
But that has to also be presented out to the community so the
Yeah.
people know, so they know what they're volunteering for.
Would this change require a motion, Ms. Lisa?
No, sir, it would not.
basically just a motion to head into phase 2, correct?
Well, if you want them to bring back an outline of how they're going to establish this committee and how the people are going to be selected, that's just a process.
Yeah.
And you can just delay it. Ask Katie to put it on the disposition of directors for this to come back to you all in whatever next month is, March. Yeah. At the March meeting.
We can approve going into phase 2, but one of the first things we want out of phase 2 is how are we going to build this committee? I think.
That's
I
fair.
don't remember what the
That's fair.
recommendation was.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, but we would need a motion to go into phase 2.
Yes.
Yes, if you're going to go ahead and jump off the deep end and go on into phase 2, you would need a motion to do that. But if you want the process to be brought back to you of how they're going to
We could actually look at it
work
at the
phase
next meeting.
2, then that's just a procedural.
Go ahead, Mr. Borman.
What do you see as the objective here? I mean, what are you guys trying to accomplish with this?
Well, first thing we're going to do is bring some order to Main Street. That's a zoo. It's so dangerous. We also want to provide places to park by, right now, we're looking into renting some property. And I know people say, and I've been able to go over there, well, everything except 4th of July week, and find a parking place. Certainly it wasn't to my liking, but I could find a parking place. Others have said that too. But if we have a lot where we can put cars, and keeping in mind that no resident will pay for parking, no town resident. We're looking at the cost for this. There's just a lot more involved.
You're kind of telling us what the conclusions are with it before we got a plan to go out there and start working on it and building into that.
We have to look into if there's land that we can rent.
So is this
And-
something that
or-
the town is going to have to lease? So the town's going to lease land for parking?
So
That
where,
would be part of the plan if it can be
Well,
done.
so where we're
But
at,
that would be the approval, need the council approval.
so where we're at tonight, do you all, is it the council's wishes that they come up with the selection criteria plan and we just punt on going to phase 2, or do y'all want to take a vote on going to phase 2? That's where we're at.
Well, if the majority votes for no phase 2, then we don't have to worry about a committee. So with that being said, I move that the council approve the parking committee go into phase 2.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any more discussion?
If I could add something to what Charlie said here. It wasn't until we got into phase 1 and got really working in phase 1 that it really began to dawn on me what's the major problem over there on the island. What is, and this I think addresses your question, Tom, and what has been the major problem for years over there. The major problem, in my estimation, over years has been parking on the island that is not clearly designated. Parking spaces are not clearly marked. That is in all the parking streets on the island. That's just not Main Street, that's all the parking streets on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've got, and I could give you like 4 big examples of why this came about in my mind. One, when Charlie, John, and I ran this time, we got nailed by a lot of people saying they can't find parking places on the island. On and on and on. But if you go back and talk to those people, if you go back and talk to them, it wasn't that they couldn't find a parking place. It's that once they got across that bridge, and that's happened to me too, once you get across that bridge, you look left to the streetscape and there's no places there, and you take your loop around the gazebo praying that somebody's pulling out, there's a spot there, nothing there, you have to go to Main Street. And when you go to Main Street, there's confusion. There's confusion where to park. Well, can I fit here? Can I can't fit here? How many times have you seen somebody pull in the spot, somebody jump out of the passenger side, look at the front of the car, look at the back of the car, say no, and they have to pull out and go somewhere else? That's on all our streets.
So
And let me continue now. That's on all our streets. And that has been a problem for day one on this island, no question. Now, during the last campaign, I also talked to a lot of people who live on Main Street. They live on Main Street. And they said to me, they're tired. They're sick and tired of cars partially blocking their driveway, completely blocking their driveway, parking on their lawns. And the one that bothered me the most was the difficulty people had in backing out of their driveways. Not knowing, fear that a bike or a child or a golf cart would be flying by. And they said to me, can you straighten out parking here? Can we organize parking? Can we get parking straightened out so that we know where to park? I'll know where the cars can't park in my driveway or can't park blocking my driveway anymore. So that's number 2. Number 3, we've all heard the problem on Main Street, all of us, about the inappropriately placed mailboxes blocking parking places. I hear that all the time. I still hear that all the time. And if you turn and think about those homeowners, you're saying what they're simply doing, they're trying to take care of parking issues in front of their houses. They're putting their mailboxes up so they can block the cars so cars can't park in front of their houses. They can't block their driveways and so on. Designated parking places on those streets would stop this problem, would go a long way in stopping the problem for sure. And finally, we can go to our police. You know, talking to our police, talking to Ken, you know, it's very difficult over there to enforce legal and illegal parking places because they're not there. They're not there. Now, designated parking places will make enforcement easier. So the bottom line to me is not what we've said. This has been the problem forever. Let's start with that and straighten that problem out for good for the future. If we don't do that, the confusion continues. These parking studies will continue in future councils, but that's the bottom line. Take the streets we have now where there's parking and let's organize them. Let's make sure that parking on those streets is easily identified, and so you know where you can park and you know where you can't park. That's the bottom line here. From there, other things grow out of that.
So that's an answer to the question that I asked, which is that you want to have an ability to define where people can park, and that's a reasonable objection to have. The thing that you mentioned about blocking driveways and things, that's an enforcement problem, and we've got rules against that now. So you don't need a committee for that. You need enforcement of our regulations.
We just voted on 2 enforcement, so we got that covered, right?
And so to Mr. Corbett's point earlier, from what I can see, the 2 committee members already have their own idea of what the problems are. There are many people in this community that don't think there are any problems. And so you're saying you're forming the committee to determine what the problem is when half the population here doesn't think we have a problem and the other half does.
What the paper says is committee to present options to the council with justifications and explanations and their recommendations regarding a future parking plan. Yeah. So all the research has been done, gets fed into these guys, and they come up and ideally they'll come up and come back to us and say, okay, this is one option, this is 2 options, this is option 3, there may be a combination of things.
That's the idea.
And let me say,
Or we just shut it down.
let me say one more thing. If the majority council votes to not go ahead with phase 2, I'm fine with that because the majority rules. But there's one thing, no matter if we get stopped dead right here, we're going to have to do something with Main Street.
But that is a state-owned road that we can't do anything on.
Well, we're working
we
with
can.
DOT on that.
And so this committee is already working on things without having met with the core group that it's trying to determine what to do.
No, what we did,
It's offering them,
Jamie, what we
giving
did,
them options.
Jamie, what we did in order to find out what the relationship of NCDOT and the town and Main Street is all about, first of all, we talked to them on the phone. We invited them here. We had two of the people here to find out what is Main Street. The first time I called NCDOT, I called one of the highest ranking people of NCDOT in Wilmington. First thing he said to me, he called up it on GIS, said, you can't park on Main Street. Stop parking on Main Street. You can't park on Main Street. I said to the guy, wait a second. We've been parking on Main Street as long as I've been alive, I think. But a long time.
I'd been a Main Street.
No,
that long.
It's not that
Yeah,
old.
had been
A little
Main Street
more
that
bit
long.
there.
We're only 60 years old.
Well, okay, but I said you can't. Now, what the problem was, as we began to talk, we allowed parking in the right of ways. They said you can't park on the roads, or you can't park with wheels on the roads, and you can't park next to the road. You got to park our right of ways. We can park in as long as it's in our right of way. So, right away, we got through that part of it. The next part was, okay, can we get some people down here to meet with us and show us what we maybe can or cannot do, so that we have an idea? Is there any hope of working with you for anything? And with that, the answer is yes. There is a way. There's a couple ways. That we just stopped at that point. Charlie and I stopped at that point because we would present that to the committee. Is there hope of working with NCDOT? Yes. Is there ways of designating parking? Yes. Now, that's where we stopped, because now it's up to going to the committee next to say, well, there is some hope here. We're not starting by calling DOT again, CDOT again, and starting from the beginning. At least we know at that point it's worth moving forward with them. That's the kind of thing we did. It wasn't solving problems. It was exploring those problems a little bit, so that when we get to the committee, we'll be able to hopefully start fast and not just sit around for a while and do all this stuff we did on phase one. That's why phase one was so important to me, because we have a lot of information we can feed to the committee to get them going without just sitting around going through all that again. That's what it was all about. And I could explain those 5 things there. I can explain in depth what we did in each one of those. I didn't do that tonight. I can explain in depth what we did in each one of those to sort of set up this committee to start and start going without having to go back and do all the research. That's all.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor. I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Then no vote. Did you vote, sir? I didn't hear you.
No, I didn't.
Okay, you didn't
I'm still,
vote.
I'm still thinking.
Okay.
What are we voting on? To
To
kill
go into
phase
to
2?
go into
or
phase
just
2.
to-
They called, their motion is to go into phase 2. They hadn't decided about the committee. They'd come back with application or whatever. This is just to actually go forward into phase 2 or to kill it right now. That's where we at.
And what are the implications if we kill it right now?
Kill it right now, it's dead.
Then we stop looking at parking?
I guess unless y'all decide, or y'all decide to want to go back in another direction.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I move that we postpone a decision on phase 2 until the next meeting and have presented to us the plan for how this committee would be organized, recruited, and set up.
Then we'd need to pull the motion off the floor, correct?
You need to proceed with the first motion and then make a second motion.
So I called for a vote. We've got 2 said yes, 1 said no, and 2 that hadn't said anything yet. So we got to go from there.
So the first motion, so if the first motion is defeated, then a second motion can be made to come back with a scheme for how the committee will be formed.
Correct.
Okay, then nay.
Nay.
All right.
Okay.
Now do you want to go back with your
So,
wishing to see it?
so I'd like to make a motion that we task the existing subcommittee to come up with a plan and the application for how to get people on the committee, how the committee slots will be allocated across the whole community, and then come back with that. And with that, we then can consider going into phase 2.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So then this is not to proceed into phase 2. It's to come back with a plan.
Come back with a plan before we decide whether to do phase 2 or not.
Yay.
All right. All opposed?
Nay.
Let's move on. Next up, Be new business.
What was the vote?
4-1.
3, or did you vote? I didn't hear. Okay, so 4-1. All right, moving on next, new business. 2023-2024 first budget planning session. Ms. Nichols, you have the floor.
Okay.
Okay, so tonight we are kicking off the budget season for fiscal year 23-24. I'm going to kind of lay out where we're headed with the budget. So after we hear from you tonight regarding the vision that you each have for the town, regarding projects, services, assets, or other directives that you may have, the next step will be for myself and Town Administrator Anglin to meet with each department head. Together, we will discuss each department's needs and wants. We will then put these together for department head presentations, which will be given to you on March 14th. Council will receive those documents on the day of the presentation. Council will be able to ask any questions they may have regarding the presentations, but we will not be making any decisions at that time. During the same time in finance, we will be looking at operating expenditures and any ongoing contracts that we have, and discussing with departments any concerns that they have associated with the operating costs. So that will bring us to our April meetings, where we will begin discussing any changes that need to be made to the draft budget that town council will receive at least 1 week prior to the meeting. And I will then take all changes made at that meeting and create an adjusted draft budget that will be discussed at April 17th. After that meeting, our hope is to have the final draft to be presented to the public at the May meeting, at which time we will establish the date for the public hearing, which will be potentially on June 5th. And the June 5th meeting will be the public hearing and potential adoption of the 23-24 budget. This is the same process that we pretty much do every year. One thing that will be different this year that I do want to mention is the nonprofit funding. There is, due to the ARP funds, there is a lot of focus on nonprofit donations. So I am modifying the application, and any money that we give to nonprofits has to be under a contract. So it has to be something that they can prove to us that they spent the money on. I do know that auditors will be looking at all nonprofit donations in this next audit. So again, I'll mention the budget suggestion form. We're hoping that we get community involvement and that it is on the website, and anybody can email me as well if they need it. So with that, are there any questions with the process, or we can go into any needs or wants that council sees?
Are you looking for needs and wants tonight?
Yes.
You're asking here for providing direction regarding project services or assets to be researched and cost.
Yeah, this is
And you wanted us to come in with that tonight.
right.
Oh,
You sound surprised.
and you,
Yeah, it's our February meeting. That's when we usually have that.
The we shouldn't have to come up with what each department needs.
No, that's not what I'm saying. So if there's something that the public has brought to your attention that you think that staff needs to look into, like the gazebo at the park, for instance, that's not necessarily a department that would choose something like that. That's a need that we've seen in the public that we addressed moving forward. I know, as you just discussed, parking. So that eventually will be a budget issue, not right now, but it will be one of those vision things that the town has seen. So any public input that you've had to kind of give us an idea if there's things that you want staff to look into. So in the past, we've had salary studies. I'm trying to think of different things that we've had. The website, but we're already working on that. Things like that that aren't really department specific, but they've kind of come from council as far as things that you've seen that you feel like the town needs, which we can hold off on that until the presentations as well. So you can kind of give us that direction at that time too, because at that March
7th, that'd be wise.
at the March 14th meeting, when department heads bring their presentations to you, you can also email us at any time if there's something that you want staff to look into before that March 14th meeting.
I think this would be a good time to just announce to the community that if you have specific projects that you want council members to bring before the town, to let your council members know what the projects are.
Right. That's also the
do
budget
that.
suggestion form. That's what we're
Yeah.
hoping.
Yeah, but
to
have you gotten
happen.
any budget suggestion forms yet?
I have tried for 3 years and
Okay.
I've gotten very few, but I have tried.
Okay, so the answer is now, we're asking the public if they have a project or an idea that they want, reach out to one of the council
Right.
members, discuss it, so it can at least be presented at a future budget meeting.
Right.
I
Just
think that's where we're at, because evidently nobody's
fill
prepared.
out that budget form, the budget suggestion form, it's online.
Yep.
And, you know, if you have anything, I don't care how far-fetched it might be, we want to hear your ideas. We're going to get an idea of what the departments need, but what do you need that's going to improve the town?
Go ahead, Jamie. I think you had your finger up. Go ahead.
Mr. Up, I don't have anything at this time. And I would like to point out that I'm not going to support anything that's going to increase taxes.
I will
Given
point
the-
out that
given
we
the
are on
state
a
of the
reval
economy.
this year. So we won't have solid revenue projections until later in the season, which is kind of why at March 14th, you can just hear what we have to say, hear where everybody kind of stands, but we're not going to make any decisions at March 14th because it's going to take a minute for the state to get their information in. We're in a different place this year than we were last year, economy wise. And so that's why we're going to wait until the April meeting to make any decisions. So we can have a really good idea of where everything is sitting with revenue.
I think the point is you've got a goal, and that is to stay within the tax rate we currently have.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
That's
Good.
fair. Yeah.
Let's go on. Thanks, Tara. Moving on next, our Board of Adjustment members' term expirations. All right. We have two board members, or two positions, correct, Lisa?
Yes,
Two
sir.
positions that are up for April 2023. She just wants the council to let her know what about going ahead and reaching out to the current members, see if they're interested, and if anybody else are interested. So all we need is basically just okay from the council for her to proceed with that.
Do we need a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the clerk to notify the current members, to advertise the positions, schedule interviews for 2 positions on the Board of Adjustment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, ordinance 11002, peddling, hawking, and the like. Go ahead, Ms. Anglin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a current ordinance that we have on the books now that basically doesn't allow any type of this activity outside of a special event. Within this process, this is how the markets are able to have food trucks or food vendors, sunset at sunset's allowed. They just have to be contained within a special event. If you go away from this, then that would allow these activities to occur at any time. The planning board was discussing allowing this in the permitted uses section when they were reviewing Article 6. I spoke up at that meeting and informed them of this ordinance that was on the books in general code and expressed to them that before they took a lot of time to consider this, to add it or not add it or amend it or how to amend it or whatever, I recommended that we all hear from you as to if your views had changed. I don't think this specific sitting council has ever dealt with this ordinance, but several of the prior councils have over the years. So that's what we're asking is, do you want the planning board to look at this? Do you have any desire to make any changes to this ordinance, or is it good the way it sits?
Now, this includes this includes peddling, I don't know if the word is peddling, but selling on the beach, right?
Yes, sir.
That's public places.
This includes
Yeah.
public places.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can go to Food Lion and get their permission to set up in their parking lot, and they would be allowed to do that.
Let me give another example and see how this fits. Say that there is a HOA that has an event at their HOA building, and they want to bring in a food truck to sell food on that night at their event. Do they have to get a permit for that?
Yes, they do. For
Good.
that truck to be,
Good.
for that vendor to be allowed at all, they have to be
Within the town.
contained within a special events permit. And it doesn't matter if it's public or private property. You can have a
Ah.
wedding, you still have to have a special events application and permit to be able to have that wedding on the private property, utilizing whatever. A tent, a food truck, caterer,
A beer wagon.
beer wagon.
Especially
Why did you mention that?
And if you want to have a if you want to have a youth rally on your private property and sell T-shirts, they still have to have a special event in order for a vendor to come in and sell those shirts.
I don't see any reason to change
I
this.
do not.
I don't either.
Is there, do you see any problem with what we have now? Has it worked? Has it been, is something we need to adjust, do you think, or is it?
I've never experienced any problems with this ordinance
Okay.
in the 13 years I've been here.
So this is to sell anything within town limits.
hmm
I think we've got to support our brick and mortar stores. These people have set up in our community. They pay taxes in our community. All you need is somebody to set outside out across the street from them to sell the same things. I mean, it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's not fair.
Uh,
Jamie, what do you
But they
think?
can't,
I just
they
wondered-
can't do it with a
Yeah,
permit.
I just wonder if it would be able to be modified. So let's say there would be a local business, brick and mortar business that is having an event in a way to streamline I don't know how involved the special use permit application is. Like, can it be turned around in a day, or does it have to be, is it something that takes a week to turn around because then they have to go through all the committees and all that stuff? Like, if somebody owns a business and they're doing like an open house and they want to have a food truck in their parking lot to try to generate some business for themselves, I guess my thought is, there a way to just streamline it so there's some option versus just not at all without going through this process. So I think tonight we're not voting on the new ordinance. We're saying, do we want the planning board to maybe consider some ideas that would be maybe middle ground versus just having to go full board? You have to go through the whole process. I don't know.
Is Jamie?
Just to clarify.
I have a question.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
So would this pertain just to selling? Could someone give something away?
I need an example.
T-shirts.
Setting up on the corner to give away T-shirts.
Yeah.
I think that would fall under this ordinance and would not be allowed.
So peddling refers to selling something.
hmm
How easy is it? Take Jamie's example, for example. If some brick and mortar store wanted to do that to generate business, is this process quick? Could they come in and within a day get a turnaround, or would they wouldn't have to worry about going to businesses and look for parking spots and all that because it's their business? Is it a quick turnaround or not a quick turnaround? I guess.
30
Nope,
days in
it's
advance.
not quick. This is the process that you all just passed with all the changes and amendments that were made
Mhm.
to the special events
Mhm.
process. So it's not quick, but you wouldn't think that a business would want to come up with in this weekend
Mhm.
and have a food truck. I mean, I would think there would be a little more forethought with that. We could probably streamline it into 30 days. One of the requirements right now is for the events to meet with the technical review committee, which is basically department heads and the applicant, and they meet once a month. That would really be the only drawback, but we could look at figuring out somehow to streamline that if it was for a particular business. I mean, Chad and I can sit down and look at it if you want us to look at something that would streamline if it was for not a large event or if it was a private.
But this came out of a planning board discussion?
Yes. There are a lot of other jurisdictions that allow these types of activities to happen automatically, that there's no regulations on at all. Sunset Beach is unique in that we don't allow this activity.
I like this the way it is, and I don't see any need to change, and I don't see the planning board looking at it.
And I don't really need a vote. I just need a consensus of if you want the planning board to continue to consider this or not. Right now, this is in general regs and this is where it'll stay.
I'm comfortable here.
Yeah, I'm comfortable here too. No question.
Leave it as,
here, Tom's here.
What you said is good, and I think they would take that into consideration somehow.
Now
I
that
thought you said it's good.
Now that everybody sees this begging is a law, we need to make sure we get some police over at this store, Food Line, because every time I go in either one of them now, I'm getting complaints from the owners and all of people over there begging. I think it's pretty much the same crowd now, but that's going on a good bit. They, especially at the store, we may want to check in on that because we've got an issue that right out there at the lot, right in front of everybody on the daily. They running him off. They got one particular guy, but I've seen him go from the store to the grocery store, and the grocery store people have mentioned a couple of different people to me. But I want to check on that because I mean, hopefully it's confined to just a few, but I mean, that's one thing we've always had a real, when I moved here even, and I don't, I ain't scared, I don't care. But there's a lot of our elderly people that go in and out of the grocery store and, they go back in and tell the grocery store, I mean, there's somebody out here begging me, want me to buy this, most of the time it's just money. So you may want to check on that just a little bit for me, please, sir. Thank you. All right, moving on next to the disposition of directives for our March 6, 2023 meeting. Other than the phase 2 paperwork we're looking at having there, does any member of council have anything else that needs to be added?
We've got to add the parking.
that's
That's
phase
the
two.
phase
That's
2.
the committee.
Oh,
That's
that's
what I'm
the
talking
phase
about,
2.
phase 2 parking.
Phase 2 parking, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Anything else? If not, moving on to the public comments time. Does anyone have any public comments on anything? If not, if there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Y'all sure no more discussion? Mike, got anything else?
Nothing.
John?
Nothing.
Charlie? Okay. All in favor? Thank you.
Uh,
Now that you mention it,
Too late.